All right, welcome back, guys. Welcome back to episode 2 of episode 1 of the review of the Phantom Menace. So, big shout out to Jedi. So, we're back here again today to pick his brain once again, some more so about this subject because we got so involved with the last one that we needed to continue the story on a bit more and further. So, here we are again. How are you, anyway, sir?
Yeah, all good. Raring to go again.
All right, so Coruscant. Tell me your pros and cons about it within the film.
I thought it was great. Like it was previously to that, everything in Star Wars had been desolate,
Mhm.
and it was the first time we've ever seen
A real city.
a city.
Mhm.
And this was not just any city. It's you find out straight away the whole planet
Planet is a
is a
city.
city.
Yeah.
It's like a massive metropolitan epic center of like that, and it's brilliant to see as well. Like they come in and then you get to see straight, like near enough straight away, the chancellor and all that. They come out like Chancellor Valorum, and it plays into what's going to happen.
And seeing the
It's just
Senate as well, that was crazy for the film.
yeah, it's it's just like a wonder to see as well, like for the first time. So yeah, it was just good to see how well, you kind of get back from A New Hope, that it's been washed away by the Emperor.
I
And
think
then
the
you find
closest,
out, well, how did they control it? And then you find this massive, I don't know what, theater of like these pods, and these every
yeah,
pods is a planet, and you're like, oh dear, that's their way of the senators all
being able to
communicating.
talk to each other and
Yeah,
communicate.
it's like
Yeah,
brilliant. I was like, oh, that's a niche way of doing it. It's quite a
hey,
clever.
you never know. There could be like 500 years from now, that could be the House of Parliament right now.
Yeah.
What happens? But I think more than anything as well, the closest that we got to anything of such grandeur in the original films was Cloud City. And Cloud City, don't get me wrong, as much as it was beautiful and it was good to see, obviously, a city in the clouds and whatnot, it wasn't like Coruscant, as you said, that whole city. The whole planet is a city. The place is lit up like a Christmas tree. CGI wise as well, as a kid, I remember my first initial reaction, like my jaw just dropped in the cinema because I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
As you said, we were on Tatooine, very desolate planets and worlds. Also seeing all the big grand like rooms as well. For example, after the first Senate scene, we then see the Chancellor speaking to Padme at that moment in time about obviously a vote for no confidence within Senator Valorum and whatnot, and
Yeah.
just being like the grandeur of all these rooms and all these statues and everything. I think for Anakin that must have blown him away because if you think of in his perspective as a kid going from this desolate world, it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna go with this girl. It's like, oh, this girl that was my friend. Yeah, she's the queen of Naboo. Yeah, I've got really good sense of making friends.
It is, yeah. It's like I'm a slave. Next minute, where the hell am I?
Yeah,
So
well, this has changed.
yeah, and it is. And then of course he gets taken the first time we ever see a Jedi temple, anything related to the Jedi, and
Yeah.
it's like that. And it gets introduced. We get they get
Council.
the Council of the Jedi, and it's that bit. I remember going, oh, just sit back, oh, just in awe because yeah, we've never really seen anything like that ever. This remnants of the Jedi has been, stricken from us, and it's the first time we see it. And it's just, I just remember just wanting more. I want to see, and it's things like every give me every room. Let me see. I want to see how they sleep. I want to see everything.
Wanted to see their day-to-day life.
Yeah, it was just like that. Yeah.
I think more
So
than anything as well, like one of the coolest things in episode 1 was with Samuel L. Jackson saying that he only wanted, being in the film, he wanted a purple lightsaber so he could distinguish himself in the fights of like where he was. And obviously, I'm not going to say what's written on his lightsaber because it will demonetize this video, but he has a certain phrase from one of his films. I've
yeah.
one of these.
I can't. There was a big rumor, and he kind of swayed into it. Do you remember the program TGI Friday?
Yeah.
Thank God. Yeah. He says, I can't remember if it was the interview, but like he says, oh, would you ever do it? And he knew he got the interview for the role, but he didn't let them know. He goes, oh yeah, I kind of would do it, but only if I was allowed a purple lightsaber. But he did it off the joke. And apparently George heard this and then told him, you're getting a purple lightsaber. And apparently that's why, because he was like, well, the only reason he will do it, okay, let's, because he really wanted him in the role.
Also, a very nerdy thing about the purple lightsaber as well. Obviously, it delves into Vapod and the fact that he's using part of the dark side as well when he's essentially fighting and channeling that. I thought that was really cool how that got adapted. Like obviously, as you said, initially that's where the purple lightsaber came into place,
Yeah.
but then they writ it into canon that, oh no, he's such a powerful duelist that he's actually using part of the dark side, but he uses it against the user. So, for example, if he fights a Jedi, he can't really use Vapod, but if he fights Anakin in Revenge of the Sith, he's not a Sith yet, but he's delving towards that path and he's showing traits of the dark side. So,
Yeah.
that's kind of why. And I'll say this now, and if anybody hates on it, I don't care. He kicked the Emperor's ass. Like, he did. I'm sorry, he did. He's a way better duelist, and it was only because Anakin then ran in and did what he did, but things happened that he did. But
the theory is on that one. We'll get to that on episode 3, but there's that he allowed himself to get beast in the Emperor, so Anakin wouldn't do what he did.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So, anyways, back to episode 1. What were your like 3 standout points in the whole film? What were like the 3 most pinnacle points for you?
The bits the main loves of it I remember is the opening bit where you don't really see you just see the cloaks of the 2 Jedi, and then they get entered the room, and when they turn, and that first interaction in that whole scene, I love it. And it's a very simple scene, but it sets everything. You've got this inexperienced Padawan, but he can sense things, and then you've got the master telling him to hold it in, we're here for a job, and then that's that whole thing. Seeing the Senate and things like that interaction and all things like that. And then of course the fight. We've not got to the fight yet, but the fight, it's just absolutely brilliant.
I think one of the things you didn't like too much, but the pod racing scene for me, I love that. And not just as a gamer, but I just love that scene in general. Then would be 2 fights for me. The first fight would be the Gungans fight, because on a scale as a child, I'd never seen CGI like that. I'd never seen, it's a complete alien race with these alien shields throwing, in my mind at a time, what looked like, bubblegum, and taking down big ships on such a big grand scale. And then obviously, of course, as we spoke to earlier on, the fight from the start into the very end, from the music, from the pacing, from the fight choreography, down to the dialogue, down to just body movement, everything about that was like the pinnacle of that film, and rightfully so, because obviously it is, delving even more into it, the Duel of Fates, the real meaning behind the Duel of Fates. I don't know if you know this. I don't think it's fan theory. I think this is actually fact. So Anakin was essentially, people believe that he wouldn't have fallen or folly to the dark side if Qui-Gon had continued to be his master and didn't lose to obviously Darth Maul. He ended up with Obi-Wan, who, nothing against Obi-Wan, but at the time he was a Padawan. He wasn't even trained at that moment in time to be at the level that he was at and have a Padawan underneath him. But then he obviously was then taken up to the place of a Jedi Knight. And that duel was basically the duel for Anakin, whether he was going to become Darth Vader or whether he would have stayed on the side of the light and restored order. But he did eventually. So so there was a lot of deeper meanings to it. Even with tones of, score of the music and everything, that is essentially the pinnacle for me. So you mentioned the fight. So on to the fight. Is there anything you thought could have been done differently? Is there anything that you didn't like? Was there anything...
I think the only thing is, as I've said, everybody loved Darth Maul, and it would have been great to have that further, like some way that Obi-Wan and Darth Maul survived, instead of this whole, we know now he did survive getting chopped in half with Catelyn, but at the time, no, that was it, and it was just a bit of, I really wanted to see him.
I always wanted to see him have more voice lines, even if, say for example, if he still died the way he did, but say we had more interactions with, and all right, at this point we didn't know it was Sheev Palpatine, but just more voice interactions with either Sheev Palpatine or Empire-esque. I know the Empire doesn't exist at that point, but like battle droids or whatever else, them sort of characters. So we got to delve more into knowing and understanding this character, because I think that's another thing that kind of worked in LucasArts' favor, was because he was always this mysterious character and then he just gets chopped in half. not to take anything away from him, but then he just gets chopped in half. And then at that point, you know, as you said, we didn't know what was happening with him. A lot of people would just wanted to know anything more. I remember buying fact file books as a kid, like Star Wars, like big books, just to try and find out about his race, where he comes from, you know, just origins of him in any way.
I think that, yeah, that's the, I've said, like, it would have been great to have this would have been great as a 3 movies, because you got so much. You've got, I say, you've got Darth Maul background, how he interacts. You've got the handmaidens of the Queen. Why are they there? Why are they, you know, that whole that became legends, and then the comics, that whole handmaiden Brit was brilliant. You got the Jedi, you know, and you got like Samuel Jackson, Darth Maul, Mace Windu is him, like, he's been drawn half into the dark side, but he can control it by holding back to the light and all that. It would have been great to develop that, and is even to the point where, well, the slavery bit it was kind of washed over.
That was very,
like, well, he's not, they're quite nice to him being a slave, to be honest.
And they did gloss over it very quickly, because if we look at that, obviously, you know, pacing with the film, obviously film starts off, as you said, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn on the ship going there for aggressive negotiations. It goes away, they nearly get gassed, they then escape off the ship on the blockade, then end up where they do. Jar Jar then comes into play, events then happen, they end up on their ship crash lands. They then end up meeting Anakin. Anakin's a slave in running time for about 15 to 17 minutes. Then all of a sudden he gets found by a Jedi, gets, you know, put in a pod race and so on and so forth. So yeah, it would have been nice to see the actual struggle, because the only thing we really got to see, and I've read a lot of the comics and books and so on and so forth, is a little bit of angst between him and the other children there, and Sabomba treating him a bit, well, he was a douche anyway, so he was like that with everyone. There wasn't we didn't really got to see too much into the actual side of his mental, what was going on with him and everything.
I think that would have been a great more development of Anakin's character. I think in the Legends it was, because you would have seen he's free, but his struggles and his past experiences as a child being a slave. It would have been great.
You would have seen more of the development of him. But do you think if that was to happen, if we ended up having, for example, episode 0.25, episode 0.5, episode 1, and then do you think the franchise would have been able to sustain and survive over that? Because that's a lot of, as much as we love the franchise and we would watch it, do you think the general audience and fan would be like, do I have to watch another 6 hours of two?
Because I always think is like, I know why they did it, and he wanted it not to be so glory with the droids being the enemy, and that enemy goes all the way through the 3 films. But if they set up that only the Trade Federation, I thought, would have had the droids, and then when we got to, I suppose, the first Phantom Menace, when Hayden Christensen come in, if you had that as episode 1, and then you had another set, and taking away that you had the clones being built, but you had another enemy that was against what the Senate stood for. And I would have thought that would have been great to have, in my head, the canon head here, I suppose, if you had like Mandalore, this whole planetary system that have a fighting force, and we know from back they're the only ones who can really stand toe to toe with a Jedi. They might still be outclassed, but they can, you know, in numbers. They can take, so that'd been great to have, you know, full Mandalorians over that. And I read things like why that wasn't made, because this was supposed to be the original stormtroopers. They were like, they got introduced and got changed for Empire, but it was so expensive to make. But you think back then he loved the look. He could have had, you know, a really good, like, even if it had an element, if you take that part of a live action, you know, flesh and blood enemy in these, I think it would have been it would have made more sense, you know.
Because the droids never really felt like they were an enemy, because essentially they're activated, and that was, I'm not getting too much onto Clone Wars, but that was kind of my thing with Clone Wars, because it was like, not Clone Wars as in, you know, the animated, as in the film. You're having a war that doesn't feel like there's any sort of stakes, because apart from when the Jedi die, or when the Sith die, because they're human or humanoid to an extent, there's no real, like, if a battle droid dies, it doesn't have a personality, it doesn't have family, it doesn't have feelings, it doesn't have emotions. So you're like, oh, it's a droid, it's dead.
Yeah, and the only thing you got from these droids was saying Roger, Roger, and it made no sense.
But I
And
did like some of their funny little quips that they put in that some people didn't like, but I still find them funny to this day.
Yeah, they're good. But I would have liked, I'd say like a
real personality,
a humanoid element with them. And did you get that into the animated series? You always had this leader of the droid detachment, and it was always a humanoid.
The animated series as well. It wasn't just the droids that they battled. They battled pirates, they battled Mandalorians, they battled several different alien species when they went on to all these different planets and whatever else. So yeah, I get what you mean, and that's that was probably one of my
because I think it would have been great if you did have, like, we know the downfall of the Mandalorians even before the Mandalorian show, but if you had that of why they're completely gone and why you only see Boba Fett, and that would have made, I think that would have been a great mindset for the films to be brought onto, is the betrayal is not the betrayal against the droids, because they just get deactivated. Can you imagine then the betrayal, last betrayal of why the Mandalorians got to go is because the Emperor is like destroy the whole planet system and like that, and then that's why they're like this.
Essentially, we're just like, right, we're not going to do any. We're not going to continue anymore because we're going against essentially a force that has the power of the universe. So
it would have been interesting to see that, but what we got, you just gotta love. It is like, I know a lot of the people, they're like, I'm going to take the sequels out here because of the time, is like, some people say, it's the worst, but I don't see that,
when I was younger, obviously as a kid, I wasn't reading media in that sort of way. I only knew about this hate for the prequels in the last 4 to 5 years of, I've been a Star Wars fan since the first Star Wars content I watched was 4, and I'm 30 years old now, so I've been a Star Wars fan for 26 years. The only time I ever seen any of this hate is when I avidly went online and people like yourself told me, oh yeah, a lot of people didn't actually like the prequel. I'm like, really? I mean, I went online and I actually had to look for these reviews. Some of them are by like Vox and other places and whatever else. And I can understand in a sense why they may not like it, because no disrespect to the prequels, maybe that's how, the sequels, that's kind of in a way maybe how I look at the sequels, but also the things that they were saying for the time, it just seems more to the point like it's media controlled, because it didn't really feel like it was derived from anything at all. Because if I was to compare, and this is a very bad comparison and nobody kill me for this, if I was to compare 1, 2, and 3 to 7, 8, and 9, there's a key plot and a story running throughout 1, 2, and 3. 7, 8, and 9, because it's got 3 different directors, and it is what it is. It was made in a different way. It doesn't work. So I don't know. It kind of felt like when I was reading these reviews, it was like from a generation of people that were never made to like or understand this. And when you go into watching, it's like when you go into watching a film and you already have the premise in your head that it's bad because people may have said to you, oh, this is a bad film. Subconsciously, you're not going to enjoy the film as much as you would have done because you've been given this negative connotation of it. So I always find with anybody who may not like, anybody can like any form of Star Wars that they like, even if somebody else doesn't like it or whatever else. But if you go into watching something, just try not to look for them sort of negative reviews, because you need to be able to make your own mind of it. And because I was a kid, I never knew about any of the hate towards 1, 2, and 3 until a later age.
If you actually just take the mindset of what 4, 5, and 6 was, George didn't really have a plan.
He started off with initially being one film. He didn't want it to be 3.
No, so he didn't have the plan. That's why we get the difference between Anakin, Darth Vader, and then Darth Vader becoming, the Anakin. But there was no end goal. This had a clear end goal. It had the young Anakin, and it's a clear, it's a clear story to do it. Even if you say, "Oh, I don't like," you can be picky. You don't like this, don't like that, but you can do that in most movies.
Everybody does that, and there's nothing. You never watch anything and find anything to be perfect.
And if you take, I'm gonna have to go. Kill me if you want to. Sequels. There wasn't a goal. It was just, you're just telling a story, you're telling individual stories, and then every single one.
Three directors as well. It
Yeah.
always felt like, you know, they were given the reins to a universe, and they were kind of just told, tell your story. But as you said, you are trying to tell a story that's a 3-part saga story, and you've got 3 different writers who, one wants to make a story setting up a universe, the other wants to make a story completely not kind of coincided with that universe, and the third one, I was told that was rewritten like 5 to 6 different times, and there's like several different rehash versions of it.
It reminds me of a game, and my
But not a lot,
like,
but okay,
but
but a game by like 3 different production companies.
No, when you write, you like somebody, like you fold a piece of paper, you draw the head, you hide that head, and then you draw. I'm going to give you that, then you draw the body, then give it back to me. I'm going to draw the, you know, like part of the legs, then you draw, and then see what you come out with. And it's going to be absolute rubbish because they're not communicating, and that was it. And at least with this one, and George has always said he loves the editing, the producer side to it. And he might have failed slightly on the dialogue. It might be a bit iffy, but there's still, you can watch 1, 2, and 3.
You can tell the story is there. You know what the story is from watching. By the time you finish the first film, you already have the premise of understanding, okay, we've got to analyze the film. We have this child. This child is clearly high in the metachlorian count. He's going to be trained. You know, the Sith of now, we found out the Sith are back in the universe. He's going to be trained. He's going to eventually become the Jedi. He's been told and prophesied to be the one. Obi-Wan has now taken over as, you know, his position as a Jedi, and he's going to train him. And we're now going to watch the story chronologically of this boy growing up every couple of years periodically to the point that he gets to the point where he has, all right, we didn't know about, we knew about Padme too, well, we didn't know about Padme herself, but we knew that obviously the children and whatnot, but then we got to see that, and then the fall of Anakin and the rise of Darth Vader. So the story was kind of set in stone from the first one with what they, you know, initially did. And not to hate too much on 7, 8, and 9, there wasn't really a story that was put in place for them. As you said, you know, there's 3 different people who are working on it, and it was like a game in a sense of everyone, I give my idea, you give your idea, you give your idea, we'll shake the hat, and then we'll just pick an idea, and we'll just go, right, we're going to do this. So it kind of what it is. But
and I liked it, like with these, they're like, especially on modern movies, there's always has to be that shock factor. But we know the outcome of this is going to be Vader is the shock factor, but everything leading up to it, you're, how are they going to play this out? It's never shock because you know Obi-Wan's going to survive, but you don't know, and you know Anakin's going to be Vader, but everybody else, you're like, how do they get to it
to this point? That's the thing. It's the backstory really, because you can flesh out characters, and then due to how much, you know, people love these characters, people just want to find out their backstory, how they became the way they are, how Vader became so ruthless, how Obi-Wan became so wise, how Yoda became, you know, as great and powerful as he is. And, you know, so I think more than anything, for anybody who doesn't like 1, 2, and 3, I'm sorry, how can you not like seeing episode 3 where Yoda just, like, that for me, like that scene with Yoda just showing his full ability in the Force, and like that, you know, it gave us so much backstory to the characters that we love in the older film.
Well, that's why, like, even to the point, like, you really, in your mindset, you shouldn't like Anakin because you know he's going to be this evil.
But you can't help but to like, because of the empathy that he shows in his backstory. He was a slave. But
you end up, like, and people like, and I can see, like, from the OTs, people like were drawn into Luke, and why, like, they like, and it wasn't about, so in that era, I suppose, because the world was changing so much, about the story of a, you know, a space cowboy, let's say, and all that. And it was about the hope this kid had of being, you know, in a desolate world, being a farmer, and then brought out into the world. And a lot of people did that. If they were being bullied, they could relate to Luke. And it's like, and I feel, you know, and with Anakin, you can relate to that. He's you know, he hasn't got a father. He hasn't got, you know, and he's been like, and he wants to better himself, and he wants to better his family. Realize, and it's drawn in, and these elements were great from Jules to do, and that's why it relates. It relates to not just, you know, you know, that age group, it relates to the whole broad
On a
spectrum of
massive scale,
kids.
because
Yeah.
everybody is in some sort of situation in or has been in some sort of situation in life where it's relatable, where you can, you know, look at that character and embody yourself in them,
Yeah.
and as you're saying, you know, draw strength from that character. Furthermore, as well, you know, because he was, as I said, like a character who was bullied, but he always showed empathy in the very first film. He always showed empathy. He was always kind. You know, there's not ever one point in episode 1 where he's like a brat in any way at all, or is horrible in any sort of way.
Only the deleted scene with Grego, when he beats him up, doesn't he? But that's a deleted scene. They realised they did wrong on that.
Yeah, okay. I was trying to delve over that, but apart from that, there's no point. Well, I don't know. He insults Sebulba, but Sebulba insults him, so I guess it's tit for tat. But there's no point really. He's a childlike kid, and he's gone through so much. He's kind of like a beacon of hope in the whole film, because everybody else, in some sort of way, is not the chosen one, and is not, you know, how angelic or whatever this child is meant to be represented in this film at this moment in time. So
it's supposed to show, I suppose, your life is going to be turned upside down, and how you would impact that. This kid is an innocent. Yeah, he's a slave, but he is at an age where he shouldn't be taken away, as we know, to the Jedi. There should be younger, because of the attachment they have. And how would anybody, you know, perceive that? Like, anybody at that age is going, say goodbye to your parents, bye now, and just go. And you're like, where am I going?
I was watching earlier on, you know, when he literally gets told after the race, like, you know, I freed you from captivity, you can free your mother, blah, 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 I'm going to be a Jedi, and this, that, and the other. And, like, you know, the whole thing was like, oh, well, I'll never see you again. And if you think about it, as much as I love the Jedi, it's very callous in a sense. Like, they take children they avidly go out and try and seek Force sensitive children, obviously, you know, to create the Jedi Order and restore peace into the galaxy, what they were doing at the time. But if you actually really think about it, it's like these children are leaving their family at, like, what age do they become Padawans? It's like 3 or 4 years old, isn't it? It's very, you know,
some of the, I think, younglings, they go first, don't they? Because they're
because it's younglings, Padawans.
Yeah, because they got to go to, I forgot the planet called that gets destroyed.
Jeddah.
The Kyber Crest, no, the Kyber Crystal one. The Starkiller Base, whatever they're gonna call it. Ilum, no,
Falorum.
Yeah, no, Ilum, is it?
It is Ilum's where, because well, they've rewritten.
But they got to do the trial there, haven't they, to become
and use the crystal to obviously unlock its power to then, because they have to go.
And then that shows their trait, and I think it's a very, you know, going into Clone Wars bit,
plus
but
that
whole thing,
all the teachings that they then, if you look at Ahsoka in Clone Wars, all the teachings they then have in the Jedi Temple.
Because I thought that would have, I'd say, like, could have been a good prequel, because that would have been great to see this Jake Lloyd,
well, you know, as
the
well
next couple of years is being trained as a one.
Well,
he's not Padawan. He's going into that. Would be great.
If you want to go into that, you've probably read the comics in the books when somebody teased him when he was younger and he lit them on fire using the Force. So if he didn't show little traits towards the dark side, then I don't know what that is. But and even in the Jedi, even while he was being trained as a youngling, did you know that he was, like, vicariously bullied by all the others because he was too old, because they seen him as a freak, because he was told from, like, imagine being told that at a very young age, you are the chosen one, you are prophesized to bring, you know, peace to this whole galaxy, no pressure. All right, no pressure.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
It literally, I hate to say, he's space Jesus, really, isn't he? That's what they portray. Like, if you want to,
it was thrusted into such a position. It's like, I was literally making C-3PO. I hadn't even, like, put facial plates on him yet, and now you're like, look, can you fight this Sith Lord? No, all right, I'll train you.
Because they go into I don't think George knew what he was really writing when he kind of, like, when Shmi goes, like, there was no father. He just came, and it is just going, oh, it did what? And I would have liked to have, like, that would have been good if it delved in later into that. If there was an undertone for that actually something nasty happened to her. But I'm guessing he didn't want to go that dark, you know, like some some Sith weird thing happened. But
well, I'm gonna dance around it. So in comics, he manipulates midichlorians. In the Force. It's not considered canon.
No.
because the writer actually had to come out on Twitter and was like said it's just a story in a sense. But I actually liked that because it made more sense than when she just said there was no father.
No,
She essentially just gave birth, which
I
makes
think
it
a lot
sound
of
more
people,
angelic.
in the comics, that's what they wanted to do. They kind of, we need to go further into
It
this.
might have
Because,
just been that writer, though, to be honest,
yeah.
because with comics, like, we can, if we look at comics, I've seen comics where Darth Vader finds out about, what's it called? There was a comic where Darth Vader was able to, through seeing a Force vision, go back in time and see what would have happened if he hadn't become Darth Vader and how his life would have been. And, the comics and other expanded media expand upon so many other different things. Do you think that hurts or harms the
I always
saga?
have to go back to what George always said, and he said it. He goes, until it's in live action, it's not canon.
Okay.
And that's what he said. And you're like, yeah, it makes sense. You can, and they've messed around with it now. But you're right. If it isn't, you can have different variations. And like, it's like this. I love it. What it said. This isn't canon anymore, but it's brilliant, and it goes so much into the Jedi, but it's not canon anymore. But it was canon for the whole George period. But
yeah, and I think more than anything as well, it's good to still appreciate the canon, because there's some brilliant stories that were told at the time. George he had to assign these books off, so it weren't just like random fan fictions when they were written. Because
that's why loads of people want the younger Obi-Wan, the younger Qui-Gon Jinn. They want that. They want that shown on screen, because they're characters we loved from this movie. Like Qui-Gon Jinn is a beloved character, but we only saw him in one movie, and it's just like that. Yeah, you can, if you take out what we saw at like in the Clone Wars, but most people know him. Yeah, live action. He's only like, two now, really. Shh.
Go watch the trailer breakdown of episode 6 over on Jedi 2 Jedi. It's a very good watch. And make sure that you watch episode 6 before you watch that, because
Kenobi episode 6, but it's great. But the love of I suppose this invigorated so many more people to love Star Wars again. This start of episode 1 in 1999, I think it invigorated the franchise again. There wasn't anything.
Gave a new generation of fans to Star Wars. As well.
But
one thing I actually love is the fact that I have friends who like Star Wars. My oldest friend that likes Star Wars is 62. The youngest person I know that likes Star Wars, all right, he's related to me, he's 9. I'm 30 years old. So it's kind of nice that, all right, my friend who's 62, he sits on like the originals, I sit on the prequels, and my nephew sits on the younger set. And it's nice that it was able to, there's not many forms of media, for example, maybe Star Trek, but there's not many forms of media that has ever been able to span that far and have fans thus far and this wide, regardless of Disney obviously taking over the franchise, because my nephew still loves episode 1, 2, and 3. So it's just good that it was able to connect on so many multiple levels, because the characters were relatable. There was childlike fun aspects to it. There is humor in Star Wars, as much as some people are like, oh, it's nerdy. There is humor, there are parts that pull on your heartstrings. There are parts that make you think and are relatable into life. So if anything, I think Star Wars has been great just for people in general, because there's so many life lessons that you can learn from Star Wars, and it's very relatable to a lot of people as well. So I think that's why, on a whole, it's just been able to connect to everybody.
Very true, very true. That is a great way to end part 2 as well.
Thank you guys for watching. Let us know what you feel about our review, obviously, of episode 1. So to end this out, I think it was a fantastic movie that needed to be made, obviously, to continue the franchise over, due to my nostalgia and the times that I've watched it in the cinema as a kid throughout my life. I'd always give it an 8 out of 10 because of that. I know you said a solid 7.5 out of 10. I'll let you expand upon your point.
Yeah, I think it is. I think just for the fact, like, it'd be good for getting into the comments below, give the numbers out of like 10, because I think people do get either the low numbers because they like the other movies. But if you just take this movie as it is, I think it is a clear 7.5. But just because of it's what you want, it's what you want in a movie. If you just take Star Wars out of it, so it is great. Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, anyways, we will catch up with you in episode 2, which will be over on Jedi to Jedi. So we're going to be breaking down, obviously, Attack of the Clones. Let us know, did you agree with us? Did you not agree with us? Your opinions of you are valid, because as Star Wars fans, we don't always have the same opinion and the same view. You know, we know sometimes it gets a bit heated. Let us know, what was your favorite film out of the ones here today? And if anything, go and check out Jedi to Jedi's YouTube channel. Subscribe. Don't forget to like his videos and leave a comment of some sort of Star Wars pun or phrase.
Yeah, always good.
Anyways, guys, we'll catch up with you soon.
Signing off. Goodbye.